What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's my team selection for Game Week 34, and my free hit is active. So I'm going to run you through how the current draft is looking and take you through how I did in Game Week 33. Let's get into it. So let's start with Game Week 33, potentially the final double game week of the season. And it's a bit of a weird one because I went into the game week expecting a red arrow. No chip in play, no bench boost, triple captain, free hit, assistant manager, etc. And I got a red arrow, and yet it was still somehow disappointing, even though that was my expectation. Because in the double game week, my highest scoring player was Eze with 10 points, which I was pretty happy about because he outscored Sarri. He's more of a differential. Not a huge amount of people own him. But 10 points in a double to be your highest scoring player is a bit rubbish. Morgan Rogers, Vardio, and Saliba and Raya were my second highest scoring players, joint, with 7 points. Munoz on 6. Marmoush blanked in both games. Isak blanked. Salah blanked. Saka blanked as well. 2 points from Saka. What an absolutely pointless transfer that was, because I'm probably going to get rid of him in Game Week 35. It was just a rubbish week. I fell from 100k to 125k. And I think in terms of trying to finish top 50k now, that all relies on free hit 34 going really well. And if it doesn't, it's probably going to be just a so-so end to the season. I think I've only finished outside the top 100k twice in 15 seasons. So I'd like to at least finish inside the top 100k. I really want to push for 50k. I'm just not sure it's going to happen at this point. But there is still 4 game weeks to go, so you never know. In terms of the Marmoush blank, obviously I've seen a lot of hindsight since. I can't believe people went for him. It was Everton, Villa, etc. The guy played the full match in both games. I don't regret that decision. I think I was close to switching to Saka on the deadline stream, but I just wasn't sure if he was going to start against Ipswich. Then he did. I think Saka owners have probably been a bit unlucky to not get a return at all. And I did briefly think about Mbermo, Bowen, even Trossard for a small amount of time. But realistically, if I didn't go for Saka, I probably would have gone for De Bruyne. And he blanked in both games as well. So overall, it was just a rubbish week. The only consolation is I had a few questions about why didn't I save my bench boost until 33. Well, my bench scored 8 points this week. Last week I got 11. Now, obviously, if I was planning on bench boosting in 33, I probably would have gone for a different defender than Nico Williams, and so it might have been a bit higher. But Martinez scored more points against Southampton in Game Week 32 than he did in the double. So I'm happy enough with that decision. And I actually think Nico Williams will be quite handy later on. Potential double if Forest beat City in the FA Cup. And he's got Leicester at home in Game Week 36 either way. So, yeah, it's time to forget about 33. I wanted it to be bigger. I expected a red arrow. That's what I got. But obviously, I was hoping for a green. Just a bit rubbish. Let's see what the free hit team's looking like. So let's start with the defensive players. When I put my first draft out on Sunday, I had Leno in goal. And I said that he was pretty much locked in. But I don't have him in this team. I also don't have Sessegnon either. So let me talk through those two decisions. I feel like I've got to have 3 Newcastle players. I know that Fulham are playing against Southampton, who are obviously weak as well, but Newcastle at home to Ipswich just feels better. And if I'm not confident in the minutes of Gordon or Barnes, in terms of who will start, then I've got a free spot somewhere else. And that's basically how Nick Pope has ended up in goal. I've taken Barnes out of the team. I've got a third slot. I don't want to go for Jacob Murphy because of his ownership. I want to back against that. And so I've put Nick Pope in instead of Leno. That's about it. If I decide to go for a second Newcastle attacker, then Leno will be back in goal. And then Trippier is my second defender, basically because of ownership. Most people have Livramento or Davern, who are both really good options going into this week. They could both outscore Trippier. But for 1 week only, I'm going for the guy on a lot of the set pieces. When I get back to Game Week 35 onwards, I'm more than happy to have Livramento in my team. The reason that Sessegnon has come out is because I've gone for Trent Alexander-Arnold. Now, I'm still not sure whether I'm willing to risk the minutes on him, but I'm fairly confident he's going to start. The thing that's making me doubt that is nobody else seems that confident that he's going to start. There's all this talk about how well Connor Bradley has played. Personally, I don't think it matters. You remember when Trent played against Man United and he had that awful game and everyone thought that Bradley was just going to come in and be first choice? Trent played every single game after that he was fit and available for. The league is not mathematically over. Liverpool will win the league against Spurs this week, I'm almost certain, right? Because they only need a draw or a win, and I think they will get that. I think if Trent is fit and available, he'll be in that first 11. I don't buy this. He's going to Real Madrid, so he won't get played. Bradley's the future. Trent is the better player. It's been the case all season. However good you think Bradley is, Trent is better. And that's why I think he'll be in the team. But there is some risk there because he only played 19 minutes last week. So he might only get just past 60. So is there a risk he could get taken off before 60? That's playing on my mind. If I take Trent out, I'll probably put a Fulham defensive player in. I might even go Leno in goal and then Schär and Trippier, potentially, because I suspect that Schär's ownership is lower than Pope. But either way, I'll probably put a Fulham player back in there. I really need Marco Silva to be asked about Sessegnon in the press conference, because I think he will start. But there is some doubts there as well. So it's like, how much do you risk it? Because if Sessegnon's on the bench, you know he's going to come on for a one-pointer. Same with Trent Alexander-Arnold. So I really like Trent. I think Liverpool will beat Spurs quite comfortably. Potential for a clean sheet. Definitely potential for attacking returns. And it might be the last chance I get to own Trent if he goes to Real Madrid in the summer. So that's why he's in. I still really like Sessegnon, but there's only so many risks with minutes that I'm willing to take. And then Aït-Nouri is in. I think he's pretty much locked. Honestly, I know Wolves' defence is not that great. I know they've been playing well recently, but I still don't back their defence that much. But they're playing Leicester at home. If you're ever going to back them, it's in this kind of fixture. He's the most attacking defender. We know he's nailed on. He's still pretty much a lock for me. So in midfield, I think 3 of my 4 picks are pretty much locked in at this stage. Obviously, anything can change up until the deadline, but I'm pretty confident that Luis Diaz, Mohamed Salah, and Cole Palmer will all make the final draft. Salah is an obvious pick, and he'll also be my captain as well. I can't think of any good reason to back against that. There is a slight thought in my mind to captain Isak over Salah, because Salah will be massively captain this week, and if I'm looking for an edge, for a differential, then Isak versus Ipswich could be that. But I don't think I will want to back against Salah because I'm worried about what he might do in that Spurs game. Even if Spurs put out a fairly strong side, they're going to have one eye on European matches. So I think Salah captain has to be the one. Luis Diaz is a slight risk for a benching because if you look at his recent matches, like he started most of them, but there was just this one benching against Fulham in Gameweek 31. And it can happen, right? Gakpo could play instead on the left, and instead of Diaz playing number 9, it could be Jota. But I think overall, Diaz is the most likely of the attackers that aren't Salah to start. And I feel like I've got to have a second attacker against Spurs. So Diaz is fairly locked in. And then it's similar with Palmer. And I know everyone's going to tell me about his form. He hasn't scored since game week 21. I think it's only 3 assists since then. He hasn't looked great, neither of Chelsea. But I know what he's capable of. And Salah hasn't scored in all competitions for 9 matches now, apart from the 2 penalties against Southampton. So in terms of open play goals, it's been 9 games since Salah scored. No one's worried about captaining him this week. We know what Palmer is capable of. Is he going to walk away from Everton at home with double-digit score? I don't know, but I'm willing to take the risk. And the more people that tell me I shouldn't be going for him on free hit and they're not including him, I just want him even more. Because despite the amount of people that are free hitting this week, I think Palmer's ownership will be relatively low compared to what he can do. And if you look at what he's done already this season, like he's the 3rd highest scoring midfielder. Like he's on 194 points. He's nearly broken the 200 point mark for the 2nd season in a row. There is a great player in there. And it feels like everyone's forgotten how good he is. So that is why Palmer's locked in for me. Like he's not Salah, but he's one of the best midfielders in the game. And his ownership is going to be relatively low. It's not going to be like the 70-80% it was last year. The spot that's tricky for me is the Kluivert spot. I'm not really that excited about any of the 4th midfielders that I could choose. So Kluivert, Mbeumo, I've even looked at Matoma from Brighton, even Menetzi from Wolves. I'm not that excited about any of them, but it's not a bad time to be playing Man United at home because like Spurs, they'll have one eye on Europe. And obviously Bournemouth have just been the better team this year. Kluivert's the one on penalties and he's at home. I think I'm going to back against Mbeumo because he's going to be fairly highly owned overall and he's got a match against Forest away. He could walk away with double digits, but that's a player that I'm willing to back against. So I don't see me putting Mbeumo in this team. I think I'm more likely to go for like a Matoma or a Kluivert or someone like that. The thought did cross my mind to go 4-3-3, take Kluivert out, put him on the bench, and then just play Robinson or Sessegnon just for that attacking option against Southampton away. But there's something about playing 4-3-3 on a free hit just doesn't feel right. But if I'm really not that sure about the 4th midfield spot, then why not just put an attacking defender in against Southampton? So that's an idea I've had as well. But I think I'm more likely to play 3-4-3. Right now, Kluivert is in, but that's probably the spot in the midfield I'm least sure about. And then up front, I've got Danny Welbeck, Alexander Isak, and Matheus Cunha. Isak is pretty much locked in for me. It's quite funny because two things have crossed my mind. One, what I mentioned earlier about potentially captaining him instead of Salah to be different. The other thing that's crossed my mind is just to leave him out completely and back against that massive ownership and hope that he blanks. But that doesn't seem like a great strategy because Isak's arguably the second best pick this week behind Salah. So he's almost certainly going to be in the team. Danny Welbeck is in because of ownership. João Pedro is suspended. Welbeck should start. He's probably on penalties as well. Hardly anyone is going to own him this week. And West Ham at home is a good fixture. And I know that a lot of people are free hitting in Game Week 34. So some of the core template will be the same on all drafts, right? If you go look on Twitter, you're going to see a lot of Cunhas, Ain't Nuri, Salah, Luis Diaz, etc. I don't think you'll see much Welbeck. And I don't think you'll see much Welbeck from non-free hitters either. So as a 1 week punt, I quite like that. And that's basically why he's in the team. And if I move back to a 3-5-2, like I'm already struggling with the Kluivert spot. I'm not sure there's really a fifth midfielder that I want to go for this week. Potentially Jota, and I would drop Trent Alexander-Arnold. But I need to know Jota was starting. And we're not going to get that information, I don't think. So that's Welbeck. That's why Welbeck is in, because he's a huge differential this week. And although there's a lot of free hits being played, there will just be some players that are lower owned than others. I think Welbeck is one of those. Cunha, again, is pretty much in everybody's draft for good reason. He's a bonus magnet. It's a great fixture. We're pretty confident he'll play. His minutes are great, set pieces, etc. He probably should be in. Right? I can't really see any reason to back against him. If Bellegarde's ruled out, then Cunha will definitely start. If Bellegarde's back fit, there is a chance Cunha doesn't play, but I just don't see it. I think once he got back into that team, he'll continue to start despite potentially being off in the summer. So I think I've got to go for him. The only other two forwards that I'm really thinking about are Evan Nielsen for the same reason as Kluivert. He's playing Man United at home. Or Jimenez for Fulham against Southampton. Now, last week, Jimenez played more than 80 minutes because Muniz wasn't in the squad. If Marco Silva says that Muniz is out again, then potentially I will go for Jimenez. The only thing is I'm not sure who I will drop. The obvious choice is Welbeck, and that's probably what I will do. But there will be a slight part of me thinking about going against Cunha. Again, because of the ownership. Like, this is probably my last chance to shoot up the rankings. I don't see it happening massively in 35, 36, 37 or 38. Especially if the doubles come in 36, because then all your transfers are dictated towards getting as many doublers as possible and then covering the blank. So to try and shoot up the ranks in later games is not going to happen. So potentially if Jimenez is going to start for sure because Muniz is out, then I might drop Cunha. But the obvious thing to do is just drop Welbeck and have three forwards against Southampton, Ipswich and Leicester. But the ownership is playing on my mind this week. Again, I know there'll be a core template. There'll be several players that are in every draft, but there will be some lower than others. If Muniz is available, by the way, I think Jimenez will start, but I'll probably just dodge him because there is just risk over his minutes. So a lot will depend on what Marco Silva says in the press conference. I had a look at the best free hit team on Fantasy Football Hub. If you want to go and use all their tools, 7-day free trial still 30% off at the moment. Links in the description below. Quite similar. No Newcastle defender in the 11. I'm not sure about that. Not for Ipswich at home, but the defence is pretty good, right? Leno, Ain't Nuri, Trent. So three of the players that I've definitely considered. Chalobah I just wouldn't go for. I don't actually mind backing Chelsea defence, but I would just go Cucurella because he's much more attacking. I think Reece James has to be ignored. Midfield, Salah, Palmer, Diaz, going to be in a lot of drafts. And then Barnes. I really want to be there on Barnes. I really want him in the team because I don't think his ownership's going to be that high. He should start because of how well he's done recently, but it wouldn't be shocking if Gordon starts instead. That's my concern. And then up front, Isak, Cunha. Again, you're going to see them everywhere. And then Evan Nielsen, interestingly. Like, Man United have not been good this year. Bournemouth are the better team. They're better in attack as well. Man United's defence has done okay recently, but they can still be got at. And they're going to have one eye on Europe. So I like the Evan Nielsen pick, but I'm not sure I'll put him in. Cucurella on the bench, by the way. Same as Sessegnon. Maybe Cucurella is a minutes thing, but I think he'll start. I wouldn't play Chalobah. So pretty decent team overall. Like I said, you're going to see a lot of teams very similar. Let me know how you're getting on with your draft in the comments below. Give the video a like if you enjoyed it and hit that subscribe button. I'll be back tomorrow with final thoughts, and I'll probably have a wildcard section. I've had so many questions about wildcard, but I put out a tweet the other day. Hardly anyone's actually playing it this week, so that's why there's not been a separate video, but I will try and talk about it in the final thoughts video tomorrow, plus the press conference stuff. your last minute questions and all that good stuff. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you then.